Welcome to another episode of the Online Prosperity Experience podcast. You're about to hear your host, Prosper Taravinga's powerful digital marketing strategies and actionable tactics that you can use right now. Prosper has helped more than 50,000 people from over 10 countries to create meaningful businesses that are profitable and enjoyable. Listen to this podcast so that you too can build your own business with less stress and overwhelm. Let's get started.
Why you need to establish yourself as a thought leader. Now, obviously, if you've been listening to my podcast for a while now, you know I'm a big advocate for being either a personal brand or somebody who actually, is a thought leader or is not necessarily involved in conversations, but actually, drives them or actually steers them towards, having people or maybe helping people have a happier existence. So if you're a coach, consultant, small business owner, or an internet explorer, as we have so christened ourselves, you would know that by now it's no longer enough to just show up with a personal brand, because anybody can come up with either consulting, training, information, expertise, or any paid speaking gigs, as long as they're brave enough. You need to establish yourself as a thought leader. Right. So you might be thinking, oh my God, I've been working all this while to get to where I'm at, crafting very good personal brand. And you say that's not enough. Well, you know this for sure. You know what I mean? It's gospel that you have to cultivate your own personal brand, particularly if you're a coach or consultant, or if you want to be an internet explorer. How will people know who you are, or what would people say you are, or categorize you while they're scrolling through their newsfeed? But because everybody has a brand nowadays, even dogs on TikTok actually are well known than human beings out there that showcasing and creating value for other people out there. And I think it was Tom Peters who describes it as having a personal brand is just that promise that you have to your marketplace and the world. What would people be confident that they will get from you if they engage your services and things of that nature? So simply having one is now insufficient. It's like, going into McDonald's and they ask you, hey, would you like fries with that? Now, listen, man, I just didn't come in to grab a burger or something of that nature. When I go into McDonald's, I'm here for a Happy Meal for my kids. I'm here for a big size meal for myself. So quit asking me if I need fries with that. It's now insufficient for you to just show up as somebody with a social media profile or like a Facebook page, because just about anyone, in even inanimate products, can have a page. So you can't just be simply known as Scott from marketing, or the guy who speaks Spanish, or the programmer that can explain things as if he's speaking to their grandma, or maybe that lady who helps people with HR and gets things done fast. That's already been done. All right. Look at the scenario that has happened to the pizza business. All right. Domino's came up with a unique selling proposition, and they said they were going to give people a pizza for in 30 minutes, or it will be for free. Now every pizza uses that as the standard. All right. So you showing up with your consulting, with your training, or with your courses, that doesn't shift people or stop them in their tracks, while they're scrolling through social media or looking for information on the internet there, all right? That's nice to have, because everybody now expects it, but there's now a million of you out there. There's now a million, coaches, consultants, or people that can disseminate any training or information. We now get paid for implementation. And that's the reason why being a thought leader should be the next frontier for you. And this is not a new thing. I'm not being a thought leader by actually telling you to be a thought leader. I'm just telling you that we now live in a global village where it's no longer the person down the road who can only supply steel, the person up the street who can only create pottery. We can go on Amazon and it can be delivered before we click purchase or we hit send. All right. Your business, your company, can be replaced by somebody who can do it cheaper, better, faster. But if you are the person that is the best option, the person who is a thought leader, you are irreplaceable and you're indispensable. And that's the frontier that you want to start working at, instead of you just having to, work while you're watching behind your back because somebody is breathing, in your neck, trying to overtake everything that you have created or anything that you are creating right now, because it's become the standard. All right. So one way that you can notice that you now need to really craft a thought leadership position is maybe you're cold calling potential clients out there and you're having people hang up in your face. I mean, that happens to everybody else, but if you are a well-known brand, if you are somebody who's changing the world, giving value out there, people will listen to what you've got to say, even if they're in the middle of doing whatever they were doing when you called. Okay, if you are maybe sending out hundreds of emails without getting as much as thanks for reaching out response, that means people don't care about what it is that you're talking about. If you would notice, people would listen to somebody who's a celebrity. If they're an influencer, people would listen to like a reputable consulting firm, more than they would listen to anybody else who's showing up, who doesn't have any clout or credibility, in order to validate that whatever they're saying is essential. All right. So basically what it is that you want to do is you want to start creating some sort of a body of work that you can leverage out of, so that people can get to know, like, and trust who you are, and actually stop scrolling whenever they see stuff coming from you, because they know they're either going to be educated, they're either going to have a difference made to their life, or some sort of value is going to come out of everything that you say. Okay, so you might be wondering now, how do I build this reputation, and in this podcast, I'm going to try and just go through certain items that you can start piecing together in order for you to get started on the journey of being a thought leader. And I want you to be rest assured, this is not the first time you've heard this, because the term thought leader isn't new, but it's certainly gaining a lot of momentum in the business world right now. You know why? Because we are just going through one of the biggest recessions and one of the biggest resignation times that in our history. All right. After the pandemic, a lot of people were told that the work that they were doing was non-essential. Now, put yourself in their position. 2 years, you were being told you're not needed in society. And then pretty much after, when somebody decides, okay, it's time for you to come back, then people started going back to work. Now, so many people at a conscious level, at a human level, that's not sitting well with them. Because if you've been told that your job is non-essential, why would you actually have the backbone to want to go back to something that somebody told you is not needed? Okay, and that's the reason why I think a lot of people are now looking to create, their own means of production, their own sources of income in terms of creating businesses and things of that nature. And what is the usual thing that is the easiest, form of business for anyone to get started that you can do without, getting a lot of funding and a lot of equipment is being either a consultant or a coach, because a lot of these people were already disseminating this information but working under somebody else's banner. So all they just got to do is start branding themselves and also join the masses of people that are coaching out there, that are consulting, that are giving out information and their expertise. Now, how do you then stand out? That's the reason why I'm saying, if you've been in the game long enough, my Internet Explorer, you need to widen the gap from those that are getting started by being a thought leader. So a thought leader is anyone who's considered an expert in their field of expertise. You might be a lawyer, a consultant, a doctor, a dentist, or whatever it is that you were doing before. And if you sort of seek to be known for that and be part of the maybe 1% or 3% of people in your industry, you need to be a thought leader, my friend. And in this podcast, I'm going to try and give you tips on how you can do that easily. So thought leaders are typically your go-to people when you have a question pertaining to their industry. They're highly knowledgeable and they're always staying abreast of new trends in their field, and they are leading the conversations, not just being particularly a part of those conversations. So you might be asking again, how do you become a thought leader? All right, not everyone can or will be a thought leader. Just because you're an expert or you're a coach or consultant or an internet explorer, it doesn't warrant that you are automatically knighted into thought leadership. Okay, it takes a lot of hard work. All right, a lot of us are not tuned into radio, WORK work. There's a lot of work that is needed for you to stand head and shoulders above anyone in your industry. A lot of dedication and a lot of persistence. Because if you're a thought leader today, just wait until somebody discovers how to do whatever you've thought cheaper, better, faster, and you have to come up with new and innovative ideas consistently. All right, so you need to actually take genuine interest in what it is that you do, not just be good at it to become an expert, but to actually become exceptional, so much that you've got a large body of work that people can consume and actually learn from you, and conclude that you are actually a thought leader. Look at the people that you probably follow in your industry. All right, you would notice that these people are out there putting podcasts every single day. They're writing books. They are speaking, at conferences. They're speaking at trade shows. They are speaking on virtual meetings and things of that nature. People are seeking their advice in the media. That is who you want to become, my friend. Okay? So how do you build a reputation as a singular expert, which is somebody who does not participate in the conversation but actually drives it? All right, you don't want to be chiming into what other people have already said, although that's important, but you want to be the person driving those conversations so that you have people chiming in and then they perpetuate those ideas that you are coming out with. So in a word, you want to be able to put ideas out and then seek out for sneezers that can spread that idea, people that you can leverage off of. Okay, so no matter how brilliant or talented you are, you won't be sufficient. You won't be sufficiently appreciated in the marketplace or by your customers until a broader public actually recognizes who you are. And that outside reinforcement becomes maybe an echo that brings a lot of money and respect within the industry. So how do you actually get into the upper echelons, and how do you do that? Okay, because at the end of the day, most people think what they're doing right now is creating thought leadership, but I would want to prove you wrong, because it's not as easy as just waking up today and showing up. Okay, I think there's people like the guy who wrote The Outliers. Remind me who his name is. Malcolm Gladwell. Okay, you want to immerse in your field so much and genuinely know what you're talking about, so much that people don't even question anything that comes out of your mouth. And I think, as Malcolm Gladwell describes in his book Outliers, you should read that book. It takes about 10,000 hours of practice to become truly expert in any field. All right. Look at everyone that has created something. You can notice a body of work that follows them behind the scenes. All right. You just don't show up and become a best-selling author unless you're tricking the Amazon algorithm. You need to have written a couple of books before that maybe got published, and you now have some sort of a platform where people will then take whatever book that you write straight to the stratosphere. All right. So in order for you to start, the way you become a thought leader is starting obviously from a position of having created a personal brand. Okay. And how do you create a personal brand these days? Obviously, you need to have a robust online presence. All right. Not everyone can immediately jump onto international scenes or international prominence where maybe CNN calls you in so you can talk about something that's happening in the world based on your expertise. That takes time. That takes being on smaller platforms. That takes you showing up. That takes you disseminating information consistently, and at times it might feel like nobody's buying your stuff, but as long as you show up, as long as you've got what they call back work, where people can then say, you know what, in 1997 this guy wrote a book, in 2026 this guy interviewed these people, all of those things. What does Google say you are, or who does Google say you are? All of that has to be indexed in such a way that you're creating such a body of work that is undisputed. So CNN is not just going to rock up on your door and interview you, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be old in order for you to be a thought leader, okay? So don't get me wrong. Back in the time, yes, 26-year-olds would be the people that are bringing coffee into the boardroom. But nowadays, 26-year-olds are actually the people that are leading in discussions of social media, within corporate. So age ain't nothing but a number when it comes to thought leadership. So anybody can start anywhere, especially when they're starting online, because now the internet has leveled the playing field. As long as you come in with your 10,000 hours, and as long as we can see it, because the internet does not forget. All right. So have you been blogging? Have you been putting out podcasts? Have you published any works? Have you published any books? Have you painted, 1,000 paintings that nobody has bought or seen or anything of that nature? I mentioned blogs before because blogs are particularly good because they showcase your knowledge, and within a blog you can actually argue with yourself and show that you have in-depth knowledge of what it is that you're talking about. And these days search engines actually prize the frequent stream of fresh content. So is Google indexing your blog every single month, every single fortnight, every single week, every single day, every single hour? Are you putting out stuff there that people can actually, follow through and learn from where you came with these ideas and how you actually created, such a wonderful body of work? So blogs are there to showcase your knowledge. If you can't write, put out a podcast like this, okay? And this podcast can now literally become can be transcribed, and that copy can be turned into a blog. You constantly have to be putting out fresh content every single day. That's why I show up with this podcast every single day. A lot of blogs out there might seem like they are unloved or unread, but let me tell you something. Once you find your people, once you've identified your voice, the right kind of people with the right kind of pain will seek you out. But they're not going to want to seek you out if you're just a one-click wonder. There's so many singers and artists out there that have got 10 or 15 albums before they hit the mainstream. All right? So what makes you think you can hit the mainstream with just a couple of blogs under your belt? You have to be able to write so much that you now find your own vein. And once you find that vein, stick with it. Because once people start following you, they now want consistency. They now expect consistency. All right? So you need to show the cold face. You need to show us that you've put in the work so that it's easy for people to just transfer that trust to you. So like I was saying, a lot of blogs go unwritten, but yours can be different with a little, time and elbow grease. All of that is needed in order for people to value what you have put out there. People are not just gonna, stop whatever they're doing just because you showed up on the scene. And good content is key. Every blog should be a home run because you never know which one is going to actually put you in the stratosphere. Just like, the connections that you have online and offline. You need to connect with other bloggers so that they can also, put you on their platforms and you can borrow their authority. So that means you need to have a very big circle of people that are doing stuff. Some of the best advice is from, I think it's Chris Brogan. He's an otherwise unfamous guy who had been blogging for a decade. And he made himself a critical cog within the blogger world, and he's turned out to be a big time, content disseminator out there. Now he's just kicking out bestsellers, and guess what he's doing? He's actually just recycling some of his old content. All right, that was not famous before. So you're also doing yourself a favor by creating today, so that you don't have to create again tomorrow. So how do you then maybe put that stuff out there? You want to maybe get on social media. I'm not a really big fan of social media. As you will notice, I'm not on Facebook and I'm not on LinkedIn. But at the end of the day, that's where the people are currently. All right. That might change in the future, but that's where the people are currently. So if you're not a big fan of social media or don't see the point, you're probably not going to become a thought leader unless you use other channels. All right, we're now living in a digital world and technology is constantly evolving. Right now, I'm sitting in my office and I'm recording this podcast. But you know what? You're going to listen to it wherever you are from your white earphones or, doing whatever you are doing. We no longer need, production houses. We no longer need multiple teams in order to make this happen. Although I have a team that is dedicated to this podcast alone because, somebody has to do the graphics. Somebody has to actually edit all the ums and ahs. Some of them, we leave them in there. You know why? Because let's just prosper. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any content in between there. So like I'm saying, find a way to get out there. Social media is easy because it's already created, there. But, you could do email marketing, whatever you're creating, send it to an email list, or you can actually create your own, community on Slack, or you can create your own communities on Telegram. There's so many ways that you can do it these days. So it is essential for you to be where your target audience is and to actually create a personal brand so that people will miss you when you're gone. And when people Google you or when they look out for whatever your information is, make sure that there is enough information for people to go by and actually get to know, like, and trust who you are. And it's so easy to come up with ideas. All right. Look at the way Uber came up with the idea of combining technology and the taxi service. Airbnb is combining technology and, a rental service. They're selling space. How many pieces of, how many things can you actually come up with that just need to have a technology put on top of it? Because one secret of unleashing new and innovative ideas is to marry two or more, desperate fields. You need to design a new blender. Think about what frozen drinks have, in common with ballet and go from there. What can politics learn from acupuncture? How can your new, B2B software employ the best principles from skateboarding? Things of that nature. Anything can go these days. When you start thinking like that, maybe you are, watching your kid play soccer and then you start thinking, how else can I include this in my marketing, or how can I include this in anything that we're doing? So once you do that, make sure you've got people that are following you. And I want to apologize to all those purists, but no mention of developing thought leadership ideas is complete if you don't have an audience or followers that will then deem you a thought leader. You want to cultivate your concepts and have people that can actually spread the word for you. All right? Once you do that, you, my friend, will be head and shoulders above anybody else who's trying out there. You know? Because the more you start doing these things, the more you increase the knowledge that you have. And we all know that knowledge is power. So for you to be viewed as a thought leader, you need to portray yourself as an expert within your industry. And expertise comes with hours and hours and hours of beating on your craft. You know, you may not know everything about everything, but your name should come in mind when somebody has some sort of specific question about your, field of expertise. What do you want to be known for? Is it finance? Is it marketing? Is it coaching? Do you want to be known as a speaker? Do you want to be known as somebody who disseminates information? You know, because when you start sharing information on your blog or on your podcast or any related or regional content to your various social media channels, people will seek it out because it's a new phenomenon that they haven't experienced before. All right? And like I keep repeating, take your knowledge and put it in the form of a blog because those can be shared amongst people. And if you're not a great writer, make it brief and straight to the point. Have you ever seen the blogs that Seth Godin puts out? It's usually maybe 200 words or less, or even 100 words, and that's it. He's done. You know? Just find out what your ideal audience is looking for and what they need to know and answer those questions in the content that you're writing. It's as simple as that. And why am I speaking about thought leadership today on this podcast? Because somebody asked me, how do I stand up above, the platform? Because it might seem like, no one wants to buy what you're selling. And when you actually rely on your business to pay rent and put food on the table, you will realize that, you know what, you need to actually do more than you're doing right now. Yeah? And if you're not speaking either at engagements or in virtual, virtual meetings, how are people going to know that you're the right kind of person with the right kind of solution for whatever it is that they're looking for? Because speaking engagements are a great way of becoming a thought leader. I've gotten a lot of partnerships, a lot of clients when I have spoken on people's platforms. You know why? Because when people come and show up to a seminar or some sort of a virtual Zoom, training, those people have already invested in the owner of that platform. All you're doing is just getting onto that audience and then just showcasing what it is that you can do for them and doing it for them immediately. You know? But I can understand not everyone is cut out to speak in front of a crowd. So you can use a podcast for that. You can use video for that. And there are various ways for you to demonstrate your knowledge, both online and offline. We no longer live in a world where, you're like Oprah Winfrey, who had to have, a whole big studio, a whole team, a whole production behind the scenes. What do I have right now? Headphones, a microphone, a recording software, and a will to do this consistently so that one day somebody's going to show up and be like, oh my God, I didn't know you existed. Where have you been all my life? And I don't have to worry about them getting started from anywhere because each and every one of the pieces of content I put out there is always evergreen. You know why? Because I know that one day I will be this big, bad thought leader and so many people are going to want to consume my content and I want it to be relevant more than ever in the time that they're listening to it. So I'm not doing this for today. I'm doing this for years and years and years and years to come. And the fact that we still listen to the Beatles, we still listen to old music. Why can't I be one of the people whose content is still being listened to by generations to come? I want to live forever. And how do I do that? Every single day, I freeze a moment in time of thought leadership that can then be used by other people as vintage stuff. I don't know how they're going to be listening to stuff later on in the future. All right. So keep learning. Never stop putting stuff out there because you never know who's listening. You never know who this might influence. And that's how you become a thought leader within your own space. And one thing you gotta be is just be yourself. Try not to be what you're not. What really sets people apart, in any industry is authenticity. What is it that sets you apart to any other industry expert, in your industry there? And it isn't enough to be knowledgeable. You need to have a personality. You need to be authentic. Thought leaders are confident, they're fearless, and when it comes to it, they are authentic. All right? It's people that are forging a path in their industry rather than following it. All right? And you shouldn't be afraid to ask the questions or make mistakes. That is all part of learning. And that's because thought leaders are true leaders. It's people that are paving the way. They're putting roads where there were no roads. So if you make a mistake, you're actually helping the generations to come so that they don't have to repeat those mistakes themselves too. So what are you going to do today to establish yourself as a thought leader? What do you actually think it takes to create any thought leading ideas? And is it possible for you to become a thought leader? I want to know. I can't wait to celebrate your thought leadership. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, let's continue the conversation in the Live Long Digital community. Become a Live Long Digital community member today. This community is for ambitious entrepreneurs and small business owners with the drive to take control of the future of their businesses and achieve huge success without stress and overwhelm. As you heard, Prosper can help you by teaching you marketing strategies that work. So look no further than the Live Long Digital community of entrepreneurs and highly successful business owners. Join our community today. Find us on www.community.livelongdigital.com.au. Network with other driven entrepreneurs and find the expert guidance you need to take your business to the next level. www.community.livelongdigital.com.au.